Welcome to this eighth exercise. In this exercise, we'll be doing something very interesting. We'll be defining a variable and we'll be having a few curly brackets inside of this string of this variable, and we'll be using a dot format function to take the values inside of these uh, parentheses in this print statement, and we'll be assigning these values inside of these round curly brackets of this variable. So without complicating anything further, what I want you to do first is pause this video, copy this entire program exactly the way I have written it, open up your terminal, and inside of your terminal window type in Python 3, put up a space, drag and drop this ex8.py inside of this terminal window, and this is the address of this file, where this file is located. Here in this case it's on the desktop. Hit enter and you get this particular output. So let me explain this code line by line, step by step. So in the first line, what we do is we define a variable, and we can call the variable anything. As we have seen in previous exercises, we can name this variable as anything, but then we have to use this variable anything at every place in this print statement. So for simplicity of this exercise, I chose to name this variable as variable, and I use this is equal to sign, which is an assignment operator. So what this basically does is it assigns whatever value that is on the right side of this is equal to sign, and it assigns this right side value to the left side of is equal to sign, which is the variable in this case. So we have three curly brackets inside a string, which are strings inside of this double quotes, and these three curly brackets will be useful in further print statements. Okay, so these are empty curly brackets and they are spaced. Let's jump to the third line, which is a print statement. So in this print statement, what we do is we make use of a function called dot format, and so first we type in our variable name. In this case it's a variable, we can call it anything we want, as I mentioned before. So here we type in our variable inside of this parenthesis of print statement, and we use this dot format function, and we have a parenthesis inside of this dot format function as well, and inside of this parenthesis we have three values representing each of these three curly brackets. So the first value inside of this parenthesis of format function, in this case it's 69, will directly be assigned to the first curly bracket. Then we put a comma, a space, then the second value inside of this parenthesis of dot format function, which in this case is 36, will be put inside the second curly bracket of this variable, and the third value of this dot format function after this comma, which is 40. This is a word and not a number, and since this is a word, it will be considered as a string, and since it's considered as a string, it needs to be enclosed within a single quote or a double quote, be it anything. So we use 40 here, and this third character inside of this dot format function will directly be put inside of this third curly bracket of this variable, uh, and it will be printed just like that. So you can have your terminal window open at the side just to get a reference of what I exactly mean. So 69 will be put inside of this first curly bracket, 36 in the second curly bracket and printed like this, while 40 FOURTY will be printed inside of this curly bracket, will be inputted inside of this curly bracket and printed as this. So what does this dot format function do? Well, it basically does the following. It takes the variable string which is defined on the line 1, this one, and calls its format function, which is similar to telling it to do a command line command named format. Then it passes the format to 3 arguments. These are arguments which match up with the 3 curly brackets inside the formatter. Sorry, these are the arguments. These 3 are the arguments which match up with the 3 curly brackets inside the variable which we named as variable. This is like passing arguments to the command line command format. The result of calling format on formatter, which in this case is a variable, the result of calling format on our variable is a new string that has the curly brackets replaced with the 4 variables. This is what print is now printing out. So then we have line 4 for some more clarity. This is very similar to the third line. All we do is we have 2 strings instead of 1 in the first line, and we have 1 number in this case in the line 4, and it will print something like this: 1 ONE, then 2, which is a number. Since it's a number, it need not be enclosed within these quotes, and 3, which is again a string, so it's enclosed within these single quotes. On line 5, we again have the same process, and we apply this dot format function to this variable which we defined, which we named as variable on line 1, and here we have false, true, true, false. But these capital F false and capital T true are Boolean values, and they are recognized by Python as standard operations. So you need not enclose them within single quote or double quotes, since they need not be a string. But this true, small letter T, true, must be enclosed within a single or double quote, since it's not recognized by Python as a proper character, proper Boolean value, and hence it would be a string. And if you don't enclose it within a single quote or a double quote, there will be an error. On line 6, line 6 is something very interesting. We again have a print statement. We again have the same variable which we define on line 1, and then we again use the dot format function, but inside of this parenthesis, instead of these regular old arguments that we used, our arguments are 3 variables. Well, are 3 variable. So what this basically does is put in this variable, and whatever value that this variable has inside of this first argument, what the second argument does is put in this variable again and have these three curly brackets and put these three curly brackets inside of this argument. So you can have something like variable 2, and you can define it as something that has 4 curly brackets. And these 4 curly brackets will be printed inside this variable 2 if we decide to call it that. So right now we have here our 3 into 3 curly brackets, which is 9. So inside of this, each of these curly brackets, there will be 3 curly brackets which will be printed inside each one of these curly brackets. So that is pretty interesting. Try experimenting by having more curly brackets, by having more variables here, by having more arguments here. And the 7th line is basically just the same, wherein I prompt you to try some of your own text here, and that's about it. That concludes this exercise. So what I want you to do is create another exercise of your own with maybe lesser than 3 curly brackets here and even more than 3 curly brackets here, but then in that case you must have the same number of arguments as the number of curly brackets inside of this variable. Try experimenting what happens when you have less or more arguments inside of this print statement, and try to decode of what that error which you will get, what that error exactly means. That's it for today, and thank you for watching.